Hello, it's us again. It's Chloe and First. And today, in the second episode of our podcast, Just Saying, we are going to talk about the topic of education. So, first of all, we're going to talk about education as a term. What is education? Because there's different forms of education, there's different things we think about when we talk about education. So, maybe it's good to start with what it means to us and how it's different maybe for you and me. Yeah. So do you want to start?
Oh, right. I guess education can be formal and informal. Formal is your systematic school through university.
Yeah.
Or whatever educational, formal educational institutions laid down by the Ministry of Education.
Yes.
Yes, that would be formal education. Informal is anything that you can learn.
So anything you can learn by yourself or that someone can teach you?
Yeah, courses, online courses. Things you learn yourself. You can create your own courses, structure your own learning. But
yeah,
quite straightforward.
Yeah. So I want to start by just maybe exploring what it means to us, straight away education. What are the big things we care about or we think about when it comes to education? So for me, for example, a value that I have or thinking that I have that I always had is that formal education, so education from school, from any university, any organization that teach you things, it's not necessary, but I think it works well as an additional teaching to informal education. Formal education and informal education work well together as a combo, as a mixture. But for me, formal education is not necessary. And in the same way, informal education is also not necessary by itself. But it's I think the two of them can exist by themselves. You can either receive informal education or formal education. The two of them together make quite a strong foundation for kids, I think. But if you miss one of those, either the formal or informal, it's not that bad. That's what I feel like when I think about education.
For me, it's a bit different. To survive in today's society, I wouldn't say it's imperative, but I would say it makes your life a lot easier when you follow formal education. And if you're middle class or both, it's quite easy. You just do what you're supposed to do in society, right? That's kind of the path. Then hopefully you have a job. This is really different than back then when it's kind of guaranteed. Now it's not really guaranteed, not as guaranteed. But having a formal education, especially at least a bachelor, guarantees some sort of safety net, because when you apply for jobs, right, if you don't have a degree and you apply, sometimes you get automatic rejection from the system that they put in place. Doesn't mean that you cannot get a job. It's just much harder because this is just how societies are structured these days. However, with informal education, it also allows people to get experiences that are more relevant than the ones taught at school. Yeah, I think we would talk more about how relevant or not relevant later, but I think both are necessary.
That said, in my case, I did go to school and I went until university, but I'm happy I did it. I wouldn't say it helped me that much. I think I learned a lot, but ultimately it didn't provide me with a job, let's say. Also because I haven't graduated, but I'm going to talk about this later. So I still think that school is important. I'm still very happy and glad that I went through school. I think it taught me a lot of things that are not just, skills, but also how to navigate society, how to make friends, how to communicate with people. So other skills than just, math, French, history, or whatever. I don't know if that's also a thing in the world, in Thailand, but in France, we like to say that there's things you cannot learn at school. There's fundamentals that you cannot get from school. You have to get it from your parents, from your friends, from life, life teachings, right? I don't know if that's something in Thailand that you say.
We don't have that.
You don't really say that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we have a phrase, but I heard people say that you can learn shit outside of school as well. Anyone can say it.
Or when we say learning the hard way, you don't go through the normal process of learning, the easiest way, but you go through the shittiest version of learning.
But it wastes time. It's because you're learning it the hard way. It sounds like you waste time, right? Yeah. For me, it's the same as when you read books. You read someone else's experiences so that you don't waste time as the author of the book who's gone through the journey, and you're like, oh, okay, I can avoid this. I can do something like this. Back to your point earlier, I think formal education is important. It teaches about life as well because you interact with friends, societies, and all that, right? Bully, and then how you overcome hierarchy, a social hierarchy and all that. And it's kind of guided that systems in place to punish the people. Hopefully punish the people who do wrong. Didn't happen for me in school.
But you never did wrong.
Yes, but I was punished. Injustice.
So you were punished for the wrong reasons?
Yes.
Oh.
A lot of my friends too.
No.
Sometimes some friend did something bad, but then the teacher couldn't figure out who did it. Or couldn't bother, so they just punish everyone.
Teacher, they would just, say, hey, that person doesn't raise his hand, then everybody's going to be punished, or everybody's going to have to do this exercise at home or double homework or something.
Oh.
And nobody wanted to, say who it is that did that. Because then we would get bullied by the person who did it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for us, we would know we did it, but then we would get punished. And for us, it's not scolding or extra homework, it's like physical hit.
Yeah.
About a
The
stick.
old school way.
Yeah. Which also was good in a way that because it took so much time to hit like 50 students. So half an hour would pass or some shit, and then your class is almost over. After they hit you, they would go on a rant for a while. Yeah, but we laughed about it when we got hit.
I think now you laugh about it, right?
Back then we also laughed about it.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, because
So it wasn't that bad?
it was all boys school, so there was the camaraderie of being punished together. Yeah, because some people got hit, they yell it out weirdly, and it's funny.
Oh, okay. The
Yeah.
yelling part, like screaming part.
Yeah, no one really cried.
They're so used to it that they don't even cry.
Yeah, 10, 11 years. Even the nerdiest one wouldn't cry. They were just like,
Fuck.
and they could hit you really hard to leave a mark on your ass, or you couldn't write anymore.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so you always use the non-dominant hand because it's not like normally they would use a ruler, but then they realized that the ruler could break, so the teacher would have their own customized stick.
Wow.
Where you hit it doesn't break.
This is some BDSM shit.
Yeah, but it really hurts. Really hurts.
Yeah, so speaking of childhood and school, let's talk about early stages of school. I was a good student until I reached like 11, 12 years old, and then something happened. I don't know what happened.
Hormones.
Hormones. Yeah,
Fuck
I
school.
went crazy. I was like, fuck this shit. I'm gonna dress how I want. I'm not gonna do my homework. I'm gonna talk with my friends when I want. I don't care if I get scolded. And I just did whatever I wanted. I skipped school so many times, went back home because my school wasn't far from my house. Friends, you could be either, I don't know how to translate in English, but there's the first type of student who eat every day at school. So those people are not allowed to leave.
Yeah.
The people who are flexible. So this like flexitarian.
How do they know who's flexible?
The mom leaves a note or whatever. So the flexible students sometimes eat there, sometimes eat outside, so they're allowed to actually leave. And the students that are fully flexible, like they just like they don't eat at the school, they don't pay for it, so they just eat at home.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was the one who can eat at home. So I never had a meal at school. I think it happens twice in 4 years. So I never eat a meal at school. I always eat a meal at my home.
I ate at school because for us we couldn't leave. We needed to buy our own meals. So there would be like 20 restaurants inside the school. So my school was big, like 3,000 kids at the time. Now it should be like 4 or 5 as the school expanded. There was a massive number of people buying foods. So we would compete each other to like buy food. So after class was over, during lunch, we would run to buy food because the line would be massive.
Yeah. It's just like in the movies.
No.
Like American school.
Yeah. It's worse when you got punished and you had to stay extra and you had to run and eat your meal before your class is over. Before the lunch break was over.
Because you don't have time to eat.
No.
And did you have these things like during school breaks or maybe after school hours where students would try to sell stuff? Like in my school, they would sell pain au chocolat, or they sell snacks for kids who go home after 4 or 5 p.m. And then they just buy it like super cheap.
So after school's over, we would have shops, local shops would open or brought their entire food stalls in front of the school.
Oh, wow.
So there would be like 10, 20 shops outside. So we could buy hamburgers, bubble tea.
But not like students, right? Just
They
people selling...
just people.
Because I like this. It was fun to sell stuff. It's like I'm learning how to be a shop staff or something. I'm selling stuff, Of course, it's not the money doesn't go to me, but...
Yeah, we only have that for Christmas. So during Christmas, I think from middle school to high school, each class would have about 40, 50 students. Middle school to high school, there would be, I think, 1,800 students. And we would all open shops for Christmas because our school is Catholic, so it's still Catholic.
Yeah.
And then we would open massive shops across the football field, near the football field, near the basketball court, people would buy. And we would make our own foods and we would sell it for the Christmas event.
That's nice.
I love that. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I like this kind of activities that you do at school. The only thing I didn't like was when we had the sport-related activities. I hated sports when I was young. So any sport, like competition between schools or stuff like that, I was like, no. There was a thing we did at school. I don't know if you ever did it. In French, we call it a course d'orientation. It's basically a sport exercise where you have a map and you have to find every point on the map. I mean, you have to find stuff on the map. So you have to learn how to read the map and then find the spots in the field. And you don't have any tool. You don't have a phone. You don't have a compass. You just have to use your thinking to find the things. And I was so bad at this. I was really bad at this. And it reminds me how bad I am in games too. When I have to find where something is, if I don't use the map. I'm like, did I go there already? I'm so lost. And that reminds me of this. Like, I hated this activity. I didn't like sports. I didn't like math. I didn't like science. Before 11, 12, I was okay with everything. I was a good student. I had amazing grades. In middle school, I was the first student who learned how to count the big numbers, like after 20, 30, 40. I was the first one who understood how to count.
Not a big deal.
But I mean, it shows that I was, good at math, interested, and good enough to find out stuff. Use my thinking and be like, I did it. So I was good at everything before 11, 12, and then crisis happened, and then I just didn't care anymore. High school, I was more interested in arts, in reading arts, history, going to galleries. So I was more like on the artsy side. Yeah.
I was a good student throughout. Not top student. There were some years where I would land like top 10 of the class. And once again, like 250 students or 300, like we categorize it to a different classroom where we spend time together. So I would be top 10 of my class. Top 20 is always guaranteed, but top 10 sometimes. Yeah. But so I was always a good student, but I kind of got lower scores from shit that required drawing. So in Thailand, there was a period where everyone was obsessed with mind mapping in school.
Mind mapping.
Like it was put into the curriculum or some shit. And a lot of teachers would require you to do mind mapping, especially in social science. Anything that require you to read a lot of stuff, they would ask you to summarize as a mind map. And then you would need to draw stuff and you need to paint the color.
So what is exactly mind mapping? You have to remember what you read and make it easily
I'll show you what mind map is. So you break stuff down and let's say that this one talks about what time management, and then it breaks down into delegation, work-life balance, and just keep breaking things down.
What's the point? Because it's not very clear, is it?
It's like it forces your brain to summarize things, and ideally it forces you to summarize stuff in your head and then into the paper.
This is like a graphic, right?
Yeah, but then in my school, the focus wasn't the information itself. It was like who had the best handwriting, who had the best coloring. So I would always get like 7 out of 10 because my handwriting was shit.
So it's like arts class?
Yeah,
or what
so
is this?
a lot of shit became like art projects like this. Oh, it's just kind of bullshit.
I should have had that. I would be very good at it.
Yeah, there would be one of my friends. He just had good handwriting. I always get like 9 or 10. But anyway, injustice.
So do you think it was the teacher's fault? Like the teacher was
I
not
think
good, or?
I assume the teachers learned mind mapping, but they weren't taught about how to do it properly or the purpose of it. It shouldn't be based on coloring and all this. But once again, I was from like a deep south of Thailand, not really a big city.
So maybe the teachers were not so great at their job.
There were some great teachers. There were also shit teachers.
Yeah. In my case, I was lucky. Like, I feel like I got saved by my teachers, kind of, because as I told, I started to drift away from education and I started to not care at all. And I started to have very bad grades. But somehow I managed to a very good high school, a very good one. Top 5 of my city, something like that. So quite a good one. I really enjoyed learning there because I had amazing teachers. Literature teacher, philosophy teacher, still doing art. So I had an art class, art teacher. All those teachers were really good. Thanks to them, I was still interested in learning things and reading books and writing essays and things like that. Like they're the one who motivated me to keep going to school, because I think without them, I would just have skipped and then maybe dropped, or I don't know. Like it was definitely not my parents or my friends or any other reason. Mostly teachers who pushed me to, learn and everything, because they were good and they were so praising me for my efforts, and it felt good to attend. So I think it's very important they can change your life actually. They can make you like school, they can make you like a subject, they can make you interested in this book, discover things, and it can actually shape who you are.
I felt like I didn't really have connections with teachers. They didn't really know me personally, because once again, it's like 50 kids per class. And then there's like 5 classes, so it's like 250. They would remember the naughty one, the top students one. Some might remember me, but I doubt it. So I felt like I didn't really have like teachers who like inspired me. In foreign movies, Western movies, because the class was much smaller. I feel like they have better relationship that they could really inspire or talk it through.
Yeah.
For us, we couldn't really talk to our teachers during our breaks. Like you could go to the teacher's room to ask some questions. In university, they have like appointment hours. You can make appointments with your lecturer to ask questions, or to talk. But in my school, we didn't really have that. I mean, in my head, I thought they were just employees, which because I always joke with my friends ever since I was a kid, like, oh, we all paid for this shit. Why are they treating us so harshly? Yeah, that's what I thought. As a kid,
Like the CEO, they're like, well, I paid you to teach me stuff.
yeah, I had the ego too. But I never.
That's so funny though.
But then in Thailand, the teachers more revered. Like we had Teachers' Day where we did all
yeah,
the ceremony,
yeah.
the ritual.
You give flowers.
Yeah,
to
but I
teachers.
just pretended to care. But then I was like, I paid for this. But I was really polite, I never said those words. But
There are things that you learn by yourself sometimes. It's either because maybe you go to school and then you start exploring the topic and it makes you want to know more. So for example, I used to love literature and read books. So I just started to read more and more and more books by myself. And I actually read stuff like, I don't know, psychology, social studies. Yeah, things about society, books about society, communities, religions. I just started to learn by myself, read by myself. Those are not books that were given by my teacher to read. I just went straight to it because I was curious to learn. I wanted to know. So there are things that you just gravitate towards and then makes you learn it. I remember there's also all the stuff I learned from the internet because I started to browse internet when I was like 6, 7 years old, so I was pretty young. And I was given a computer and I just went on forums, websites. At the time, there wasn't YouTube yet. So there was a website called Dailymotion with videos.
yeah, Dailymotion.
And I just learned a bunch of stuff. I learned how to understand and write English because of internet mostly. I made friends there that told me stuff, and then I started to play games, and then I also make games. I use so many softwares. Like I learned all the softwares that I know now. I all learned when I was like a kid. Like Adobe, even like things to learn how to make music, how to use a computer, how to check your settings and configure things. Like I even modified my own computer and I put RAM into it. So like I did a lot of shit when I was young just because I wanted to learn it. I wanted to know how it works and how can I do the same as this person, without anyone asking me to do it. Just because I was like, oh my god, it's cool. I want to know how to do it. But it's interesting in a way that nobody pushed you to do it. You just learn by yourself because you want to do it. You want to know how to do it.
That's good. I feel like there's people who they don't know how to do it and then they don't even bother to search it up. They just, I won't do it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surrounded by people who like to learn things, so I haven't experienced this. Maybe my family who don't really learn stuff. Yeah, for me, similar. Informal education. I started reading a lot of books, self-improvement books, because one of my teachers was quoting one book, and I was like, what the fuck is that book all about? So I went to the bookstore, and then that was like a first book that was self-improvement. It was very easy to read. As I grow older, I think it's kind of nonsense now. Because a lot of Thai authors, like self-improvement Thai authors, they're not actual scientists or researchers.
They're more like coaches.
Yeah, or they're just random famous people, and then they read those books from overseas, and then model books, and then they just summarize it into their own version. Back then it was good.
Yeah.
And then it opened my door to like other famous authors like Dale Carnegie. How to Win Friends and Influence People. I thought that was one of the first serious self-improvement books that I read. And I read obviously the Thai version, but I read when I was really young. Before it became very popular in Thailand, I already read it. So I was quite proud. Never told my friends because I didn't want my friends to improve. So I just read all these self-improvement books and I never told anyone. And I just went on and then eventually I landed on non-fictional business books. So I started reading more about like stock market, business, and then I went into finance.
That's why you're going to finance in
because I read.
studies.
Yeah, because I read a lot of books and then so it's mostly me. Yeah.
There's the things we learn by ourselves and there's the things that our parents teach us. So informal education, the parents' way. So parents are, I think, in my opinion, supposed to teach us a lot of things, mostly like survival skills, like how to cook, how to clean, how to take care of yourself, how to buy something, like really basic things. I think how to behave well in society, like how to eat properly, how to talk to people properly. So I think my parents did a pretty good job at this. Maybe they were not so good at teaching me like deeper stuff or even like school subjects like math, science, because I was shit. But they did a pretty good job at raising me, to be a person who can adapt to anywhere. Like I traveled alone for the past like 8 years. I never had trouble. I always found my way. I always managed to talk to people that I never see before, like learn English. Thanks to my education and what I learned from my parents, not just school, I was able to have this kind of life and, was able to go on adventures and not end up in the hospital because I eat some shit or, I eat raw food or whatever.
Mine was kind of different than Chloe. I grew up with grandparents. So my mom was more like an aunt. Like I would see her like maybe once a year, maybe twice a year. My parents were divorced, but I stayed with my mother's side. So my father was whatever. So a lot of skills I kind of learned by myself. I learned how to tie shoes by myself. Took me fucking hours because I fucked it up. As a kid, I'm like, how the fuck do I untangle this? And eventually I figured it out. So a lot of things I learned by myself. I think my grandparents kind of taught me stuff, but then mostly how to behave in society. I think that's the most they could teach. I think they were really scared of me being perceived badly by society. They focused, especially my grandmother, how to sit properly, talk properly, how to use the right...
Give a good impression.
Yeah, give a good impression. Yeah, so I'm quite good at that, even now, right? And yeah, I think that's kind of what I learned. But
yeah, cooking, no. Cleaning, no. Gardening, no.
No life skills. Yeah.
Hunting.
Nothing, no. I was in a Boy Scout, but my school forced
Oh,
me
yeah.
to become Boy
Boy
Scout.
Scout.
Oh, sorry. The raw meat.
Oh yeah, the raw meat. You told me you used to eat raw meat.
Yeah. So in Australia, this was in university already. So I borrowed money to study abroad after the exchange program and all that. And I ended up in Australia. And then I knew that I was supposed to cook meat. But then our place that I was living, there's really no cooking equipment. Or there were, but it was someone else's. And I didn't really want to bother the guy. And then I had a plan. Instead of wasting my time cooking meat, I could just eat the raw meat. I think it was already cooked. But you just need to, I don't know, it's in a package. But it's not like raw.
What do you mean?
Like it's like a steak.
Yeah.
Like ham steak. You just need to heat it up, like, I guess. But I never
Was
heated.
it brown or pink?
It was pink.
Then it was fucking raw.
But it's ham, so it's
it
pink.
was fucking raw.
Anyway, so
Ham, maybe ham is fine.
yeah, so I had a strategy. I was like, I would just eat that raw along with other foods. We didn't even buy microwave because none of us was willing to pay for the microwave. Yeah, so I was like, I had a plan. I just ate that for like a year and a half. Then after I switched plates with cooking stuff, I would take the pill to cleanse my stomach. And that's exactly what I did.
Just because you take one pill.
3 months of that pill.
3 months of the
So
pill.
I think I bought it
But
from...
you have to spend a lot, no?
It's not that expensive. I calculated. It was actually okay. I read that, okay, if you eat this raw meat, right, you could have parasites and all that. So I was like, oh, why not? And then that would kind of kill all the parasites. Worth it.
Is it? You
I
could
didn't-
just eat something else than raw meat.
I
you know?
needed the
There's plenty
protein.
of food.
Needed the protein.
Eggs. Cooked eggs.
But then you have to cook eggs. I
Actually,
was
raw
really
eggs.
trying to save time back then.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I am happy you didn't die back then.
Yeah, my friends thought I was crazy, but
That's why education is important, guys. Not to make this kind of mistakes.
it's not a mistake if it worked.
What do you mean it worked? You just survived. It didn't work. Like, what did you
I didn't
you
have
bring
diarrhea.
it?
I didn't have diarrhea at all. Save time to study.
Anyways, I guess now we can talk about why education is important. So I think obviously when you have better education, you have access to higher income, better jobs. Educated people, for me, I think they are definitely more open-minded. They're probably just better people in general if they are well-educated. I'm just saying that they're smart. I'm just saying well-educated. So if they're well-educated, they should be better people. They should be more understanding, more open to, I don't know, life, more maybe tolerant. Yeah, I just feel like I have this idea of someone who's well-educated as a better person. Of course, I mean both from the formal and informal education. I'm just talking not only formal, because you can meet someone who had like a lot of degrees, like a doctor or something, years of studying, and he can be a real asshole. You know, it's also about informal education. If that person didn't have an informal education, maybe had problems with the parents or, you know, had something missing, you know, in the process of growing up, then only school education is not going to make that person a good person. I think that's definitely you can meet people who have really, really high degree and they're very, very knowledgeable about things. Doesn't mean they're smart. Doesn't mean they're resourceful. Doesn't mean they're open-minded and kind and good people in general. Yeah,
Completely agree. An acceptable level of education, I don't know what that is, but it allows you to overall to have a decent quality human who respects the rule of law. Talking about like elections, understanding how democracy works. I'm not trying to get into politics, but understanding the rule of law. Like, oh, okay, if the car goes this way, I shouldn't break the law.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's just basic stuff. Because we live in a society, right? So in a complex society, there's taxes, there's all these rules of law that we need to follow. So when you uneducated, formally or informally, there's more chaos because you either choose not to respect the rule because you just like you can't understand you lack critical thinking. I think it's more important to see this in more, if you go to rural areas where there's less education. I'm not trying to say that rural people are bad, but people who are not educated formally and then informally as well, and they have, how do I phrase this?
They lack on both.
Yeah, they lack both. You can lack formal education, but you can be quite like a self-learner.
Yeah,
but when you go to like a really shitty part of the country, city or whatever, and you meet those people and you talk to them, and it just, a lot of things don't make sense. Like from their point of view, is very selfish.
Very narrow.
Yeah, really narrow-minded.
Outdated.
Yeah,
maybe.
or when you challenge them about certain ideas, they cannot really defend it properly. This is partially because of the lack of formal education. Because obviously if you take formal education, maybe you have a chance to more debate with your friends, teachers, maybe there's room for those. I think especially in Western countries, you have philosophy and all that, right? Thailand doesn't have that. We more like follow the rules. What is good? What is right or what is wrong? Or they give you like an ethics question that you have to write essays out of it.
You have 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. I only started doing that in the US. In Thailand, it was more like multiple choices. Even university entrance exams that I've seen from my friends is more like, here's a scenario. And then what do you think, what's the purpose of this scenario? What do you think is the learning point of this scenario? It's not like, it's critical thinking, but it's multiple
They
choice.
don't really let you
really
draw your own
yeah,
conclusions.
exactly.
They just give you options.
Yeah, and we never really have like debates. I don't remember much debate in schools. It's more like, oh, here's a solution, here's this and that. I think doing that can be quite bad because you create a group of people who don't really challenge things. Challenging things can be annoying, but then to make progress, to innovate, or to improve, you need to know why it's wrong, and you need to question why it's wrong. Yeah, that's a lack of critical thinking. Like those teachers, when they were told by whoever, their boss, they could have argued or framed the mind mapping better. That's one example of not questioning the authority or not giving the assignments that are more appropriate. Right? Ethics, having an education about philosophy is important. Linking back to like badly educated people, whether they're from rural area or city area, you will feel it. There are smart conservatives and there are smart left wings or progressive right out there, but then they're also really narrow-minded from both sides, politically or socially. You know.
They cannot accept another point of view.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah. If they can explain like, because I believe in this, I prefer things to be this way, even if it's morally bad, I can understand it.
Actually, now that you tell me how it is in Thailand, for example, I understand it even better because I'm thinking, what if I was a student learning things that way? Like they give you a question and then you have only options. Then you think that those are the only options possible. You don't think outside of the box. You don't think there is actually another way. So if they say those people, they learn conservative ideas and there's only this idea, both of them are conservative, then they don't think there is another way. And then they think that this is the right thinking. So everything else is wrong.
So I have a really smart friend who's a conservative. Very controversial, but when he makes the arguments, it makes sense. This is a guy who goes out of his way to read like Plato, Aristotle. So when he makes arguments about conservatism that he believes in Thailand, whether education, religion, how society should be structured, even though it's conservative and extreme, it makes sense. He believes in his arguments and he doesn't like the progressive part. Which speaks more than to a lot of progressive that I know who just wants things to be progressive, but they can't really explain why. It's just because it's a society's trends of now, right? You can be woke in the right way, where you can explain why you prefer things to be this way, right? Like, I prefer LGBTQ plus people to have equal rights. Something I believe. I can explain that I support it because I feel like it doesn't really bother anyone. Yeah, if I were gay, I'm not gonna fuck like a heterosexual person.
I mean, I don't think that people worry about it.
Some type people do.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, some of my friends do. They thought like gay people would kind of try to fuck them and turn them gay.
Okay, we need to fuck.
Yeah, because I came from all boys school, right? But, yeah, but even then I was like,
okay, fuck me when I sleep.
Yeah, exactly. So one point is like love doesn't really bother anyone in a sense. Yeah, if they're not attracted to you, they shouldn't be trying to bother you, right?
It's not even about being gay. It's just like if you fuck someone without their approval,
then you go to jail. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter if you're gay or not. Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then there's also economic impacts. Gay marriage, LGBTQ plus tourism. There's economic benefits. If they have kids, they can actually share the custody of the kids. Like there's different arguments to be made. This is from the point of view of someone who's somewhat progressive on this idea. But then my friends who are just progressive would just support it because it's a trend. I don't think they just support it blindly. But then if you talk to them, they just don't know. Or the one who's just conservative blindly, they're just like, things are already good as it is. Why are we like
changing things?
Yeah.
A lot of the arguments like, it's always been like this. Or like it was how it is before. It was how it is when we were born. Or like it's like there's only male and female, and then heterosexual couples, and then marriage before sex and shit like this. Like because it was like this before, then it should stay like this.
Yeah, it's like staying comfortable almost.
Like, you want to stay a caveman all your life? You do you. Go in the forest, live like a caveman, eat raw shit, and die in your piss. You go.
When you say like things are good the way it is, it means it prohibits you from trying to become better.
You're growing.
Yeah, 300-400 years ago we used to burn people for being witches.
Cats!
And cats just.
We used to burn
we just talked about it. Yeah, because there was a spectrum of having a black magic. Doesn't mean that we should keep doing it because things were like that. That's why when people say this argument, it's not a good argument. Yeah, it's not a great argument. You can believe in what you want, but you need to be justified and really believe in your own reasoning, why you believe it to be that way. Not.
Do you think that education can change your life? Did it change your life? Personally, sorry.
Ask me and then you went on to yourself.
Personally, I think that education did not change my life. As in, I didn't graduate. I thought maybe it would ruin my life, but instead I took another opportunity, which is modeling abroad, right? So I just had to drop everything. I think it changed my life in a way that because of the teacher I had, because of what I learned, I grew up being interested in some things that, made me who I am today. But I wouldn't say that it changed my life in the way that I have like a really good job now or something, like. It also didn't ruin my life. I didn't graduate, but I'm still okay. I still have a decent job, decent salary. My life is comfortable, I would say.
It's too decent, the salary.
I was able to be an expat and live in a faraway country, so that's a lot of things that people cannot do. They cannot just quit the country and go live abroad. So I consider myself very lucky.
I think for me it changed because I think from a guy from a small town in Thailand,
Yeah.
then I got the exchange program to the US, and then from there borrow money and then kept on studying in the US and Australia. And then I got a job in Singapore, and then now I'm back in Thailand for some
Actually,
reason.
for you,
Yeah.
I think for you, education was really important.
Yeah, it's
really
quite
important.
life-changing. Changed a lot of my mindset, right? Because I experienced multiple countries' education. When I was in the US for exchange, I was in Minnesota, like really small town, 1,000 people. Very conservative, but not racist. Maybe they're racist, but they're not racist in a way that they yell you out the street. They're racist in a respectful way. Yeah, so I really believe there are like good conservatives out there. Even though we live in like a world where it's more like progressive, right? If they were racist, I wouldn't know of it. But they were just like America first, even back then. But they didn't really yell me out.
So more like nationalist, but in not an
Respect,
extreme way, right?
Yeah, in a respectful way. And they could really craft their arguments and then why they believe that the tax should be zero or why they believe they should have guns. Even in rural system, in a rural town, the education was good. But a lot of informal learning as well. Like it's life skills from interacting with my friends there.
Meeting people.
Yeah, surviving abroad and all that.
English. Because now you speak really well English. People who watched the previous video said that your English was really good. Thanks to traveling to the US and Australia.
Yeah. And me for learning hard, pushing hard.
Good job.
Thank you.
So now that we talk about our childhood and what education we received when we were young, it's time to talk about the future generation. So if you have kids, what do you think you will do? What education should they get? Is it going to be more formal, informal? Like, how do you imagine this?
If I can secure enough money, I would push for formal. Sending them for formal education is also offloading your work. Yeah. You don't want to be teaching them all yourself and then ruining your life. Yeah. I would not be able to do that.
I don't think we will have time for
Do not have time. Yeah. So formal education, where there's more ethics, but informal education would be more on trying to get them to be open-minded, can debate.
Critical thinking.
Yeah, critical thinking. Can question me, like, oh, why do I choose to do this? I'm wrong because of what? Allowing me to admit my mistakes. Being open-minded. Why is the news saying this? Is it real? Or why are things this way? Like having a lot of questions and be willing to like learning why things are that way, but also have the critical thinking to know when not to ask.
Yeah. What about like education, like in school, university, things like that?
I hope they know what they're doing. I don't mind they're going into degrees that don't make money. I think the role of formal education is to prepare them for the normal society's pathway. Right? If they're trying to get normal jobs, trying to live normal life, formal education sets for that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things you said that are the same for me. Like, I mean, I believe in education, formal education, right? But I didn't have a degree myself. So I think for me, the most important is to teach them values and how to live in a society, how to be honest, open-minded, kind, tolerant, how to be able to talk with people, have friends, self-care, how to take care of your mental health, things like that. Some skills like cooking, maybe gardening, whatever. I really want them to do sports also. Physical activity is very important for kids. Yeah,
so running.
We are running.
By that thought.
Why not? Of course, obviously, like you, I want them to go to a good school. Not aiming for the best. Maybe it's better. I say maybe because I'm not even sure it's better. Like it's my own point of view, right? But like a good school, okay, with good teachers, but not necessarily the best or the top school.
I want the best.
That's okay.
But it's more like if they set that goals for the best, then they should. I don't know. It's more like when I buy stuff, I also try to buy the best.
Yeah. I get it.
I want the best of everything.
They choose to be artists or whatever. I'm also okay with this as long as they're good people.
Yeah.
It's already the end of this podcast because as usual, we talk a lot. I hope this was entertaining, informative. I hope that was interesting. If you want to share with us your opinion, your views on this topic, feel free to leave a comment.
Yeah. Or ask questions there.
Or ask questions. Critical thinking.
Yeah, like how many years before you finish your uni?
Yeah, I only had 1 year before I graduated.
So close.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you for watching and see you at the next episode. Bye. Thank you for finishing on this humiliating ending.
I was curious because